Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 2023 Street Scenes Awards ceremony with our juror, Matthew Moore. He's the Associate Professor of Photography at Anne Arundel Community College. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Matt, and he can read his juror statement.
Thank you, Paige. Yeah, I do have a juror statement here to read. It was an honor to do this exhibition, and I really enjoyed seeing, all the work. It was a lot of work. There were, as I say in my statement, there were over almost 400 works. I think it was like 390 something. So yeah, it was a lot of work, but I enjoyed it. And so the statement, that I prepared for this is as follows. There were almost 400 works of art submitted to this exhibition. So as you can imagine, there could have been many different versions of this show. My process involved looking at the submitted works repeatedly over the course of a few weeks. Ultimately, the works that can continue to resonate with me over a long period of time are the ones that made it into the exhibition. One of the reasons I love the theme of this show is that it can be approached in so many different ways. I enjoyed seeing, for example, the juxtaposition of traditional street photography, which rarely involved an actual street, with the more literal approach that many painters took, often including roads and cars in their work. I also appreciated the wide variety of media that was submitted. In the final selection, you'll find lots of traditional art forms along with works involving digital collage and digital painting. I have no issues combining these divergent media into a single exhibition so long as all the work maintains the same level of conceptual and aesthetic rigor. In selecting prize winners, I favored works that somehow surprised me, works I felt I had not seen before, works that stayed in my mind long after viewing them. Even as I write this, I can still see those cows in the middle of the road looking right at me in the eye while cars swerve around them. Humor always helps.
So we're going to get started, and we will introduce our first honorable mention by Judy Gunther, which is Nightfall.
Yeah, beautiful photograph. I was really struck by this photograph. This photograph, I saw it in the first edit of this show. The photograph was in, and I remember, looking at it over and over again, and every time it was like, yeah, that's got to stay. And one of the things I love about it, I mean, it's clearly, sort of this like wide angle perspective, but I love how this, the scene kind of bends. You've got the building that's sort of parallel with the edge of the frame on the left there, and then it just kind of bends around. And so I just love the composition of the image, and of course the quality of light really helps because the colors really just kind of pop. So beautiful photograph.
Yeah, I adore how she's got almost three different streets, where off to the left you can see a glimpse of one street all the way down to what looks like a dome. And
Yeah.
then more to the right, you've got the street, and then it really gives me like Amsterdam kind of vibe. So, they use the waterways a lot. So it's like an unconventional street.
Sure. Yeah, I was feeling Amsterdam with this as well. Yeah, I don't know if that's accurate, but it does have that vibe.
Awesome. Well, congratulations to Judy. Next up, we have Rebecca Rothy, Tai Chi in the City.
Yeah, amazing photograph. And I think if I remember correctly, I think there were a couple of photos that Rebecca had that made it into the show. This is what I, would consider sort of classic street photography that I referenced in my statement. And, being sort of schooled in street photography myself, I really love it when you find these just interesting things that happen where, you've got the world moving around you, but also this like sort of advertisement in the back where, the model is looking, directly at you. And it's just this odd juxtaposition and it's not something you expect to see. It's kind of a surprise.
Would you say that you were drawn to this piece more because it gives the viewers kind of that very down and at level view of the streets, as opposed to being taken a step away or from up high?
That's an interesting idea. Yeah, I mean, it is nice that there's a little bit of space, right? It's not too tight. I mean, it's a square photograph, so I know something has happened at some point. We're missing information on the left and right, but it's also not tight, on the scene. You do feel at a little bit of a distance, I'm always a person that's saying, get closer. But in this case, I really like that the photographer is a little further away and we get to see, these people in their sort of environment, because that juxtaposition is actually what's important for the photograph. But yeah, it does feel like the photographer may be I don't know, maybe they're crouched down a little bit. And I do like that sort of straight on perspective.
Nice. All right. Well, congratulations to Rebecca. And then our last honorable mention is by Sarah Hull, and it is elevation number 121.
Yeah, full disclosure, I'm not a painter. And I'm not, I know what sticks out to me, but I don't always know why. But in terms of like technique, with painting, but I really like that figure in this painting, that person with the tie on, that is somehow, it's not perfectly center in the composition, but it's clearly the subject. I mean, like I really,
Yeah.
this painting is it's almost like the scream for me. It's like there's something going on around this person, and I'm drawn to that person and what's happening for them mentally. And something about the way the painting is laid out compositionally, and just through it's almost like there's a little bit of focus for that person, but the other people are kind of blurs. She's really put that person in the middle of a crowd, but they're the center of attention. And I really love that. She says it right in the title, elevation. The elevated perspective is, I imagine this at a bus terminal or something, somewhere where people are commuting. Really interesting.
Yeah. I love how she's drawn the attention to that one figure, even though she's got four very bright colors slightly to the right. Like there's the guy at the bottom wearing bright blue that looks like an Amazon delivery guy with like their little blue vest and everything. And yet our attention is still at that one person.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, so for our first juror's choice, we have Patsy Lindamood's Alleyway.
Yeah. And I do remember that there were two images submitted by Patsy, and spent a lot of time looking at both of them. And I just love the detail involved in this. And one of the things I would do is sort of open them up and zoom in on them, because being able to see sort of the quality of, sharpness in a photograph and resolution and things like that. But in this case, a drawing, just the level of detail, it's just really spectacular in terms of the craftsmanship. So strong piece, really enjoy it.
Now, would you say between her, you had said that she had submitted multiple pieces. What was it about this particular one that really elevated it to be one of your jurors' choice?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I can't remember per se what the other one was, but I do remember that there's something about the structure of the fire escape with this, and maybe the texture of the brick, that really kind of stuck with me. And again, after, repeatedly viewing these over and over again, it just kind of kept rising to the top. It's clear on the first look, it's like, oh wow, this is a really strong piece, but when you look at them over and over again, and they continue to be strong and even get stronger, that's how I picked sort of awardees. And for me, this one just did that. And I think it had something to do with that fire escape. It's also kind of almost like a classic photograph composition, and so maybe there's a little of that in there.
All right. So for our second juror's choice, we have Marjorie and Bob Moskowitz Natural Gas.
Yeah, and obviously I referenced this in my juror statement, because this is the work of art that I could just see driving to work in the morning. I could see it in my head, and it's because it's funny. I mean, there's two cows in the middle of the road. The cars are kind of like, trying to avoid them. It almost looks like there's an accident up ahead, and these cows are staring me right in the eye, as if to say, like, what are you looking at? you know and and it's just compositionally interesting and beautiful, but it's also kind of like, just really, there's narrative, there's a story here, and it also kind of like, you can imagine it being a real thing. It's not like it's just fantastical and it doesn't happen. It could happen. And here we have this like painting of it with the signs and everything, and there's that
Mhm.
natural gas sign, over on the left side, pointing at the cows. It's great. It's just phenomenal. I love this piece. So
Yeah.
that's why it's a winner.
As someone who lived in Georgia for 10 years near rural parts, this has been something I have seen firsthand on the road, and I love
Yeah,
how you have, like, the really sporty looking, almost looks like a Tesla or like a Mustang, or
yeah,
you have these really high-tech luxury cars right next to a cow that's going, "Hey, buddy, where are you looking at?
yeah,
You're in my
yeah.
way." I adore it, especially with the shadows in the foreground, and then
Hmm.
you have, like, the mountains in kind of as you push back, and it gets less and less clear with more of the cars. I love it.
Yeah, it's great. We'll have to compare notes about Georgia. I lived in Georgia for a long time as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah. It was a time.
Yeah.
All right. And so for our final juror's choice, we have Wayne Gunther's hanging out.
Yeah. And now, and I'm finding out now, actually, as I just learned these names today, there's another Gunther in the list of prize winners. So congratulations to both of you. But yeah, this photo is amazing. I just love it. It's again what I would call classic street photography, and just noticing those weird things that happen in life where the glass of a building is distorting the outside world, and this perfect combination of like a modernist architecture and like surrealism, and so it really distorts reality. And I spent a lot of time looking at it thinking, like, is this real? Like, what is going on? And it seems like it is, and it seems like it's just noticing an interesting phenomenon that's happening because of light and glass and that kind of thing. So yeah, I loved it from the get-go. It was always one of the strongest works that I had seen in the show, and ultimately decided it was the strongest.
Especially with that large blue plane of color. I get a lot of
Mhm.
Edward Hopper
Yeah,
kind of vibes from it. It's got a very painterly quality, like you had said, with the distortions in the glass. It's really, really neat.
yeah, like a
Um,
painting within that area. Yeah.
yeah. Now, is this one of the ones you had mentioned with Alleyway, just 2 back, that you found yourself coming back to it? Is this one of the ones that you found yourself being drawn to over and over again? Would you say that you spent more time with this one or less time?
It's a good question. I knew from the get-go that this was in, and I never wavered on that. I looked at it repeatedly, and and I remember kind of zooming in on it and trying to kind of see the level of sharpness and stuff like that, which I do with photographs because that's important. And I do that with all of the works, actually. And even, with paintings, and it's more about like the photograph of the painting, but this is a photograph, right? And so the submission should be sharp. And but it wasn't something I had to think about a lot, because it was such a strong piece, right? And it really held its own. And I think I mentioned in my statement works that I felt like I hadn't seen before, right? And this is something that I haven't seen before. And I mean, that's saying something. I mean, I teach photography. I see several hundred images a day, from
Yeah.
my students. And so it's a special photograph. It's one of those photographs that you make it into the portfolio. And I think that the same is true for the other Gunther's work, right? the,
Mhm.
the the Amsterdam vibe, right? That's a strong photograph. And both of these photographers are noticing light, and photography is all about light, whereas the lighting on the photograph that was black and white may not have been as important. For that image, that was more about content, right? And the juxtaposition of Tai Chi and contemporary advertising. This photograph is all about light. That's the most important thing.
It is a wonderful, wonderful piece. Were there any other statements I can go back to another image if you'd like, if you had any other comments?
Hopefully folks will be satisfied and happy with the exhibition. So I'm a tight editor, so I put in
Oh, yeah.
55, and that was it. I like to try to keep the quality high. So
Awesome. Yeah, definitely quality over quantity. And the exhibit is online, and anyone can view it in its entirety online, along with the sales gallery on our Curve Gallery. A huge thank you to you, Matthew. Thank you for being our juror and editing down. I know that was a lot of artwork to look through. You had said almost 400 pieces down to 55, but we are super, super excited, and congratulations to all of the winners, and thank you to everyone who submitted such amazing work and making Matt's time so difficult in editing them all down.
I enjoyed it. Yeah, congratulations to everybody that's in the show. Really, really enjoyed seeing your work.